What if the earliest signs of dementia had nothing to do with memory loss? What if it started with subtle, strange changes in personality? So odd that even doctors often miss them. New research shows these behavioral shifts can appear years before diagnosis, quietly signaling that something in the brain is breaking down. And the longer they're ignored, the more irreversible the damage becomes. In this video, you'll discover some of the weirdest and most unsettling personality changes that can predict dementia long before memory starts to fade. Recognizing them early could give you a vital head start before it's too late to act. Number 1. Imitating others. 3 years before she was diagnosed, 72-year-old Linda, a retired school principal known for her confidence, started copying other people. It began with her hairdresser, mimicking her voice, buying a similar coat. Then it expanded. She began adopting phrases from neighbors and even gestures she saw on TV. It was subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. A clinical study linked this behavior to early frontotemporal dementia, a condition that strikes the brain's frontal lobes, responsible for personality, social behavior, and self-awareness. As this region deteriorates, the brain loses its ability to distinguish the self from the environment. Without that internal compass, people begin unconsciously mimicking those around them, copying speech patterns, gestures, even clothing choices. It's not attention-seeking, and it's not a quirky phase. It's a neurological unraveling. Over time, the person may seem like a patchwork of the people around them because their own identity, the way they once carried themselves, thought, and expressed emotion, is literally breaking down. Number 2. Over-politeness or excessive formality. Nobody thought much of it when Jim, 68, started referring to everyone, even his grandkids, as sir and ma'am. He was a retired truck driver, usually direct and casual. But then he began thanking people repeatedly, acting overly stiff in everyday conversation. It felt rehearsed, unnatural. 2 years later, he was diagnosed with semantic dementia, a condition that erodes the brain's emotional and social language. Studies indicate that as the temporal lobes decline, people begin to lose the intuitive sense of how to navigate informal social situations. They struggle to read tone, context, and emotional nuance, and as a result, they often revert to overly formal speech and scripted politeness as a coping mechanism. It may sound polite on the surface, but it creates emotional distance in everyday conversation. To loved ones, it can feel like the person they knew is slowly being replaced by a stranger who doesn't understand how to connect anymore. Number 3. Hyperfocus on morality or justice. At 74, Anna became obsessed with minor neighborhood rules, calling the HOA about recycling bins, scolding neighbors over minor rule violations, like trimmed branches or a barking dog, became routine. Her family joked that she had become a vigilante, but in 4 years, her diagnosis confirmed what they feared: early-stage Alzheimer's. A medical study suggests that shrinking prefrontal regions in the brain, especially those responsible for flexibility, emotional regulation, and moral reasoning, can lead to rigid thinking, black and white logic, and obsessive focus on rules. What starts as mild concern can quickly spiral into relentless fixation over what's fair, proper, or just. Researchers note that this type of moral inflexibility is an early red flag for cognitive decline. What looks like excessive concern or overreaction is actually the brain's deteriorating capacity to weigh context, reshaping how a person sees right and wrong. Number 4. Inappropriate cheerfulness. At her husband's funeral, 76-year-old Margaret smiled through the service. She even chuckled when someone mentioned his favorite fishing hat. Her family was horrified. She didn't seem to understand why. No one realized it yet. But frontotemporal dementia had already begun affecting her emotional regulation. Experts report that damage to emotional control centers in the brain, especially within the frontal and temporal lobes, can cause inappropriate joy or laughter during sad or serious situations. It's not intentional or insensitive behavior. It's the brain misfiring emotional signals, unable to match the outward response to the emotional weight of the moment. As these regions deteriorate, the person may lose awareness of what's socially or emotionally appropriate, leading to reactions that seem bizarre or even offensive to others. But beneath the surface, this mismatch is a clear neurological breakdown, a disconnect between internal emotions and external expression. Number 5. Childlike dependence on one person. After his wife passed, 79-year-old Tom became attached to his daughter in a way that felt off. He followed her from room to room, called out if she left, and refused to speak to anyone else. He'd even wait outside the bathroom door or pace the house when she was gone. At family gatherings, he clung to her side and wouldn't engage with anyone else. He seemed anxious, restless, and lost without her. A few years later, the diagnosis came: vascular dementia. Research confirms that as dementia progresses, many older adults regress emotionally and become fixated on one caregiver, often clinging to them for a sense of safety and familiarity. It's not simply attachment, it's a deep psychological defense mechanism. As their understanding of the world deteriorates, the brain instinctively latches on to the one person who feels predictable and safe. This fixation becomes a lifeline in an increasingly confusing environment where even simple routines and familiar faces may no longer register. The brain, overwhelmed by cognitive chaos, seeks stability in the only constant it can still recognize. Number 6. Excessive sentimentality. Helen, 71, began crying at old birthday cards. She started collecting childhood toys, flipping through photo albums for hours, and talking about her mother as if she'd just seen her. She even asked her daughter to help recreate old family recipes she hadn't made in decades. Her family thought she was just getting nostalgic, maybe feeling her age. But 3 years later, she was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's disease. A medical review found that dementia can heighten emotional sensitivity to past memories, especially as the brain's hippocampus and amygdala begin to deteriorate. These two regions govern both memory and emotional regulation. So when they start to falter, the person may develop an intense emotional attachment to the past, often fixating on childhood or early adulthood. What once triggered warm memories now causes emotional flooding, often leading to tears, sentimentality, or longing that seems disproportionate. It's not just nostalgia, it's a neurological shift unfolding beneath the surface. Number 7. Unusual cravings for sweet or strange foods. Rodney was 73, diabetic, and had never cared for desserts, until he suddenly started sneaking candy into his room, pouring syrup on meat, and eating peanut butter straight from the jar. He even mixed jelly into scrambled eggs. His wife thought he was just being defiant or acting out. But it wasn't rebellion, it was a signal. In reality, dementia had already started affecting his orbitofrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for impulse control, decision-making, and taste regulation. A large-scale study showed that people with behavioral variant frontotemporal dementia often develop intense cravings for sweet foods or bizarre food combinations, even if they never had a sweet tooth before. This isn't simply poor dietary judgment, it's neurological rewiring. When the brain's reward system starts to misfire, it overrides logic and health concerns, driving compulsive eating behaviors that feel totally out of character. Number 8. Obsession with routine. Marianne, 75, insisted on eating breakfast at exactly 7 o'clock a.m., not a minute earlier or later. She watered her plants in the same precise order every day, folded her towels a certain way, and sat in the exact same chair every evening to watch the news. If anything disrupted her sequence, an unexpected visitor, a delayed meal, she became visibly anxious, sometimes even angry or tearful. This was long before anyone suspected dementia. Her family thought she was just becoming set in her ways. But over time, the pattern intensified, and eventually, the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease made sense. Scientists found that early neurodegeneration reduces the brain's ability to adapt or shift between tasks. In response, people develop a deep reliance on repetition and structure as a coping mechanism. Predictability becomes their anchor. When the brain starts losing its flexibility, routine becomes a shield, something they can control in a world that's slowly becoming unfamiliar. Number 9. Apathy or emotional flatness. Gary had always been expressive, laughing at jokes, tearing up at movies, full of opinions at every dinner table. But by the time he turned 73, something felt off. He seemed emotionally absent. He stopped reacting to family news, sat silently at gatherings, and stared blankly when others spoke. His wife thought it was depression, or maybe just aging. But doctors later confirmed that Gary was in the early stages of mixed dementia, involving both Alzheimer's disease and vascular-related brain damage. Research confirms that apathy, a lack of motivation, enthusiasm, or emotional response, is one of the most common and earliest signs of dementia, yet it's often misinterpreted as fatigue, stress, or mood changes. In truth, it's the brain slowly losing its ability to engage with the world. The emotional circuits that once fueled joy, concern, or excitement begin to shut down. And for families, it's one of the most painful shifts to witness, because the person is still there physically, but emotionally, they begin to disappear. These strange personality changes may seem subtle at first, but together, they paint a powerful warning. In many cases, they appear years before memory loss, offering a critical window to act early. If you start seeing these changes in someone you care about, don't dismiss them. Early intervention can delay cognitive decline and give families time to prepare.
And there you have it. What are your thoughts? Next, dive into this video for more essential tips to transform your health and help you thrive. You're going to love it. Thanks for watching Healthy End, and we'll see you there.